Hi, welcome to Know How Korner, the podcast that delves into the current state of accounting, research, and education. I'm your host today, Amy Welch, and with me is Bonnie Bull-Rustick, and I am so excited to introduce you today, Bonnie, to our audience. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Accounting Move?
Absolutely. First, thank you for having me today. I always love having these conversations. And Accounting Move Project. I have been a part of the Accounting Move Project now for the last 3.5 or so years. But it has been around since 2010. So we have a lot of history there. And I took it over from the woman who founded it originally, Joanne Cleaver. And we've known each other for a very long time. And she realized she was spinning too many plates at once and decided that she really needed to carve something off and wanted to find somebody that was passionate about women in the profession and just underrepresented groups in the profession as a whole, and reached out to me. And we worked together for a couple of years, and then I took it over and have managed it solely for the last 2 years.
Okay, great. Why don't you tell us what is Accounting Move?
Oh, absolutely. Accounting Myth Project is just a research study. Every year, we have a number of firms, different firms participate, and the goal is to learn how women are progressing in the profession. And are they advancing in the way that they want to? Are firms putting programs in place that encourage women to stay, to contribute, to advance to a partnership level? And so ultimately, when Joanne started this, she saw 4 areas that were really important to study to get a good idea of what firms are doing in this area. And that is why it is called Move. So the first one is money, which is really taking a look at pay equity. And are firms paying people fairly? And are they creating systems that take a look at pay at different levels and for different people routinely, so inequities don't get built into the system and then exacerbated? O is opportunity. So are opportunities shared equally? Are there the same types of opportunities for women in the profession as there are for men? And in no way are we saying that everybody is the same and should be given promotions or opportunities just because they exist. But what we found was that a lot of times the opportunities were not available to women that were to, in particular, a lot of men in the profession, and that created unequal opportunity. The V is vital supports. So, as we all know, while household tasks have evened out somewhat, in most heterosexual couples, women do still take on 70 to 80% of that. And so, are there things like childcare? Is there flexibility in the time that you work or where you work or a variety of things? So we look at those and kind of see where firms are shaking out on that. And then finally, it's entrepreneurship, which is really in accounting business development. So that is a very important factor to being promoted to partner. In many firms, you're expected to bring in a certain amount of business. And so are women given opportunities to participate in business development in a way that makes sense for them and a way that benefits the firm? So that's Move and what we study. And we also every year put out a report to the profession that is free, that just kind of shows what we learned and where we see the profession is now and where we see it going in the future. And then we have a lot of other things we do as well, but that's the primary stuff.
Those are all intriguing and very important to the accounting profession. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about how the Accounting Move project has evolved since its inception and what significant milestones have shaped its journey?
When you think about how Move has evolved, in some ways it's evolved quite a bit, and in other ways it hasn't really evolved at all. We still study the same things that we studied in 2010, which I just went into. We still look at the percentages of men and women at various levels within the firm. So, what is your percentage as you go up? Through different titles. As far as what has evolved, it's interesting. While there are now many more women in the profession than there was in 2010, typically on average, firms kind of break out at 50-50 men to women. What we haven't seen as much movement on is the percentage of women in leadership. And while it's better than it was, it is still somewhere around 25 to 28% on average. Certainly, there are firms out there that have, very different breakouts. But when you look at the profession as a whole, you are about 50-50 till you you're about 50-50 till you hit director level. And then about 40 to 50% of women drop off and never make it to it.
Oh.
So,
Do you think that's part of any of the MOVE factors are that's where those are attributed? That's where the fall off is?
oh yeah, I think a lot of that is. There's also other factors that come into play for that. You need flexibility. A lot of times, if you think about it, about the age where women would be looking at a partnership role, that is when they have children at home in many cases, they have aging parents, they have a lot of responsibilities. So if you look at that and go, I know I'm going to want to give my all to this role. And as we know, women will only go after jobs where they feel like they have almost all of the qualifications, where men typically only need about a third to half of the qualifications to go after them. So they're looking at it very practically and going, okay, I have these responsibilities and I can't take on the additional responsibility of firm leadership and do a really good job of it. So I'm going to wait a year. And then you wait 2 years. And then there are also structural things within firms that tend to not move women up as often or as much as they should be. So, yeah, there's a lot of factors that come into play. And while some of it has shifted somewhat, it has not changed as dramatically as we would like to see, or as maybe a lot of people think it should.
That's interesting. I love that the observation that men will often apply for jobs where they may not have all the qualifications, where women are typically more reserved in applying for those jobs if they don't feel like they meet those expectations. It's an
Mhm.
interesting dichotomy in the level of confidence, I guess.
Yeah.
My next question is the 2025 theme. Let's talk about that. It emphasizes the cost of losing talent, why belonging is essential for firm resilience and growth. What prompted that focus, and how does it address current challenges in the profession?
Oh, we could be here all day talking about this one. But I'll answer the second part first, I think, where,
Okay.
what prompted it. So we have a number of people that we go to just kind of when we're starting to think of the theme for the year, to get input. And I am a voracious reader on everything that's going in there, and I attend conferences and all that kind of stuff. But this year, with the addition and our partnership with the Center for Accounting Transformation, Donnie and I had a number of conversations about what is going on, what can we reasonably measure, and with the talent shortage, which there is no shortage of conversation about, and what is just going on in the profession, the number of people that are leaving, the reduction in the number of young people that are choosing to enter the profession, and all of this. Um, while firms certainly can have some influence on that, where they can have a really big influence is creating cultures where people want to stay so they don't lose the people they do have. So, what are firms doing in that area? And the firms that aren't able to retain most of their people, how are they doing that? And what is it that their employees say are important? And so we decided that we really wanted to dive into this because the profession is at a bit of a tipping point now, and keeping your employees and creating a culture where they want to work and encourage their colleagues and friends and everybody else to work can be the difference between a firm surviving and thriving. So let's
Yeah.
take a look at it and see what we can learn.
You mentioned the conversations that you had with Donnie, which I think networking spawns a lot of great opportunities. Um, but why don't you tell me just a little bit? Is that why you decided to start working with the center? Just these conversations with Donnie? And how do you envision the center impacting either the reach or the distribution of that survey and the information that will follow?
Sure. So, Donnie and I have kind of been in similar orbits for a number of years, and we wind up in rooms together or on Zoom calls like this together. And I just have a tremendous amount of respect for him and have thoroughly enjoyed every conversation I've had with him. So, we've talked for a number of years about, okay, how can we work together? And then when we started looking at Move 2025, Donnie and I had a conversation, and he's like, let's partner on this and see what we can do. So spend a lot of time looking at that. And I mean, it just makes sense for us to work together. We are studying similar areas. While Move focuses on gender in the profession, we also look at, not just women in general, but also how women of color are being represented, as well as white women and others, and look at all of that. And I know the center focuses on, other areas of diversity. So we're doing one survey and we're able to gather a tremendous amount of data that we can learn from in a variety of different ways. And, we also have different audiences. So I am personally really excited about the fact that hopefully we're going to get this survey in front of a lot more firms and firms that have never participated in the past to really expand our pool from which we're learning. And we've also changed a few other things where participation in the survey is free. For those that want to and want to upgrade to a firm specific scorecard, that opportunity is there. So there's a lot of flexibility that we've been able to bring to the Accounting Move project in 2025 that on our own we've not been able to do.
Quick, since you brought it up, why don't you tell us about the scorecard?
Sure. So, as I mentioned, participating in the survey is free. But I do think where a huge amount of value comes from is in the confidential firm specific scorecards. So, the way we create those is in addition to your survey answers, we interview firm leadership. We take a real deep look at what you're doing to create your culture where women and people of color and others have an opportunity to really thrive, to grow, to contribute, And we've always said that we don't really care about your programs, we care about the results of your programs. So on those interviews, we dig deep into that. And the end result is a pretty comprehensive scorecard where we go into these are the things that are working really well at your firm. Continue this, expand this, share this. Here's some areas where you could improve. And this is what we recommend. These are things that have worked really well at other firms. So we share best practices. We will talk to people at the firm and answer questions. And it is one of the things that we get the most positive feedback on from firms that have participated in the past is that they're no nonsense reports. but they are extremely firm specific. It is about you. And that is where we feel we probably bring the most value and have the most influence. And we love putting those together.
That's great. That seems like really valuable information. Let's talk a little bit about some of the political climate, what's going on. In light of recent rollbacks of DEI programs and cultural backlash, how does the MOVE project plan to navigate these challenges and advocate for inclusivity?
Yeah, it is a very weird time to be in the DEI space here in April of 2025. But it's also, a time of great opportunity, I think. And that's really how I have to look at it. Um, and we aren't shying away from the conversations. And in part, it's because DEI, I will say, I think in general, many people in this space have done a bad job of branding what DEI is. It was never about giving unqualified people positions or promotions or meeting quotas or anything like that, or it shouldn't have been. Really, what it's about is, creating a larger pool of talent from which, you can hire, looking at promotional, who you're going to promote in a equitable way. So not giving preferential treatment to, your buddy's kid necessarily, or others that you may be more comfortable with. Let's figure out a way to be fair about this. I had a conversation recently with Kimberly Ellison Taylor that where we talked about the fact, like, you talk about a meritocracy and you want jobs to be given on merit. So do we. So does anybody in the DEI space that really understands how it works. It's just let's look at merit. Let's take out those other things that tend to have influence on people. So I'm really trying to focus on that. There are going to be firms that are, well, we know there are firms that are rolling back their DEI programs and, or are understandably concerned about using some of the language that has just become de rigueur. But and I get it. There could be legal issues there. There are definitely political issues there. But I think those that scale back too much or scale, go turn away from all of the work that they've done over the last few years, I think they're going to find that they're not the place where a lot of people want to work. And people are going to leave their firms and go to those where they feel that they belong and where they feel comfortable and where they feel appreciated.
I really appreciate you dispelling some of the common misconceptions about DEI initiatives in accounting firms. Um, are able to talk about some of the most compelling findings from recent MOVE project research that firms should be aware of?
Yeah, well, we go into all kinds of rabbit holes and wind up learning fascinating things. And I will say for anybody that's interested in digging really deep, we have a archives page on our website that has the reports all the way back to 2010. So, and it's really interesting to look at some of the things that have changed and so many of the things that really haven't, unfortunately. But I would say like last year, um, because the entry of private equity is, such a topic of conversation, we decided to look into that and see how it was impacting career opportunities and career paths for people. Because there's a lot of conversation about the money that comes in and, how it's impacting the marketing and the growth of firms. But what does it mean for the actual people that work at the firms? And what we learned is in some cases, it's creating opportunities for people that did not exist before. It's sort of flattening the structure, and giving opportunities to like manager and director level people to make a significant amount of money. Um, where it's not necessarily as good is it doesn't always take a look at PE firms. aren't always, I think, paying close enough attention to inclusion and creating those cultures where people really do want to work. So we have seen um, an influx of people from PE-backed firms going to independent firms. And it's just interesting to watch, kind of the ebb and flow and how people are shifting from one place to another. Oddly enough, we were writing our report last summer. We took a pretty deep dive on DEI and its impact. And we were kind of wishing, okay, we're probably going to have a page or two in our report this year that talks about, okay, where were we last year and where are we today? And what does that mean? So we dive into a whole lot of different areas. We've spent a lot of time looking at pay equity. In particular, obviously, that's the M and move. But what's fascinating is how are firms ensuring that people are being paid? And it's not necessarily rocket science, but when how are they evaluating pay decisions and ensuring that when people come in the door, they're paid at similar levels? So then when they are promoted over time, differences don't become exponentially larger. So a lot of that, and sharing what firms are doing and how they have realized through different studies and reports that, oh, we got a problem here, but then they figure out how to address it, and that's the kind of thing that we really love sharing. But yeah, we look at all kinds of areas as far as culture and opportunity, and share the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're not here to back up an existing belief. We're really here to kind of dive deep and see what's going on, and let's share what's working and what's not so everybody can benefit from it.
Think that's great. And so you're saying that by participating in the MOVE project and in this research, that firms are able to leverage insights to foster more inclusive cultures where people want to work and want to stay.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's our goal. And honestly, one of the things that I guess should be obvious, but isn't always, is the things that are good for women are good for everyone. Everyone wants the opportunity, if they have a sick kid, to stay home with that kid.
Right.
Everybody wants an opportunity to, have some sort of flexibility in their work hours and environment. And just because we kind of dig deep on what it is that women need, it doesn't mean that men and anybody else doesn't need these things. So,
Right.
what we want to help firms create those cultures where everybody can thrive, client needs are met, and the firm itself grows and becomes a workplace of choice.
Do you foresee any differences in measurements? Like, how does the MOVE project plan to measure the impact of its initiatives on firm resilience, growth, and inclusivity over time?
Yeah, we actually have all of our data back many, many years. So we look at um, employee levels and how long people stay and opportunities that are there year over year. Obviously, this year we're really digging deep on retention, and but we're asking questions on the survey that we will continue asking. So we can, 5 years down the road, we can say, hey, this is what we learned in 2030. Wow. um, and compare it to 2025 and see if things have improved or if they've gotten worse, or some things have improved and other things have gotten worse, and just kind of report what we find and then weigh in on what that means long term.
AI is a big thing right now. So I'm curious, do you see AI having any impact on the research or the findings or even the results? I mean, is AI having an impact in DEI right now? And it may be just a bad question. I'm just curious.
Well, let me take a stab at it. So AI, like anything else, is a tool. And in my mind, and there are probably others that think differently, I think as long as you're using the tool in the best way that you can and doing so in a way that is looking at a variety of inputs, then it can be a good tool. But we can't use it as the end all be all source of information. A couple of years ago, when AI was just kind of entering our world and kind of broad use, I did a presentation on AI, and it was it was interesting because AI learns from the internet,
Right.
and it is built by people to learn in a particular way. And one of the things that we found on the negative end of things was that primarily it was being built by white men, and it was not necessarily going to all of it was giving equal weight to legitimate information and opinion. So depending on the questions that you asked it could come back with some pretty appalling things. And I do think there have been improvements in it so that it is better at weeding out just deep opinion on things and giving you more facts. I think people are better at writing prompts, but there it can come back, and I actually tested it on this, and it can come back with things that are, racist or sexist or a variety of different things. So you just have to use it and take it like you would any other tool or any other research, and make sure you are um, not just seeing it as the end all be all answer for all questions.
So we think over time the AI is going to learn to weed out some of the more questionable information that it's culling.
I think I think it has already started doing that, but I don't think there's ever going to be a foolproof unless you're creating your custom GPTs or something that you say only go to these sources to grab the information, right?
Right.
The internet is still full of a whole lot of crazy stuff. So it can get into the answers that you receive. And a lot of it depends on where you personally go. Your
Yeah.
your information is curated based on what you're interested in. So it kind of becomes a bit of an echo chamber sometimes and tells you what you want to hear, which may or may not be the best thing that you need to hear, right?
Reminds me of a story. I hope you have my niece was doing a report on the seven wonders of the world, and I allowed her to use my computer to look up what she needed to look up. And when I was looking over her paper, it was okay, except the last one was listed as Disney World. And I stopped her. I said, "Where did you what?" She said, "Well, it was on the internet." And I said, honey, I could build a website that says I'm the Queen of Sheba. Doesn't make it true.
Yep.
She learned the hard way that the internet can sometimes give you bad answers.
Oh, I mean, it's interesting. In when I was working on that presentation I mentioned a couple of years ago, one of the things that I found, and this is horrifying in a way, is that, going to self-driving cars. Um, and, that again is sort of AI technology related. And self-driving cars were taught what people look like so they can avoid them using white people.
Oh,
So what was happening was self-driving cars were running into people with darker skin much more often than they were white people.
my God.
And they couldn't figure out why that was happening. And I'm like, again, it's like you learn from what you're fed, right? So, and it's not the AI's fault in any way whatsoever. It's just we kind of have to think about the fact that where is this information coming from and who is programming this? And are we getting a fully inclusive answer to things when we go ask it something?
Right. Um, I know that a lot more teams, and I've been reading about people using AI in order to sift through resumes. And I'm wondering if that will contribute in a good or bad way to equal opportunity.
I am not specifically familiar with like AI doing that, but I do know there are a lot of resume anonymizer tools out there. And that was actually one of the things Kimberly and I were talking about is we have innate biases and nobody wants to think about it, but there's 8 million articles and things and podcasts out there about unconscious bias. It does exist. It exists in all of us. There's some things we can do about it, some things we can't. But where it really does help is if you're looking at resumes and run it through a resume anonymizer, it pulls out all of that unconscious bias that we bring to the table. And you're looking at apples to apples. Like these are the qualifications, this is the experience, this is the college they went to, whoever it was, which does allow you to find candidates without taking factors like age and race and gender and things into it that sometimes get brought into that decision. I mean, there's tons of studies out there. One that is actually from, I believe it's close to 20 years ago, where looking at resumes with traditionally white sounding names versus traditionally black sounding names with the exact same qualifications, the white person gets 50% more calls than the black person does. So, and there's some fewer studies, but there's some out there with men and women, and in particular professions, including accounting, men get a call back more often than women do. So, if we can remove that bias from the process, then why wouldn't we? And like you say, there probably are AI tools out there that are doing that. I would just be careful, which ones they are and test it, before you rely on it.
I think those of us who have reviewed resumes and gone through stacks of them are kind of excited about the prospect of somebody else or something else picking out the most qualified based on word content and descriptions of job description matches.
Yeah. No, I mean, we only have so many hours in a day. So if there are tools out there that can make our jobs easier that are doing the job well and fair, then why not use some of those tools?
For sure. Okay, looking ahead, what is your vision for the Accounting Move project, and how do you see it influencing the profession in the next decade?
Well, that gets awfully lofty. But,
It's pretty
um,
big.
yes. Well, we've been out there for 15 years now. So, I'd like to think that it has had some influence on the profession, because I think we're looking at things that not many other people are. And we are, for better or worse, out there saying things that a lot of people aren't willing to say and other people don't want to hear. So we will definitely continue doing that and speaking truth to power where we can. And I am really kind of interested to see what the next 10 years looks like. We are currently in the nascent stages of kind of scaling back a lot of the efforts that have been successful over the last 5 years. So, what kind of influence will that have over the next 5 years? And um, how is it that programs that have created opportunities for people that were often overlooked within accounting firms, if those programs go away, are we going to lose a lot of ground and lose a lot of people in the profession at a time when the profession really, really needs people? So we can't be short-sighted with what we're doing. I can get fired up about this stuff and stomp my feet and get all kinds of, you're not going to tell me what to do. You're not the boss of me. But we also have to look at what's the greater good too. And how do we have a positive influence on individuals within that profession and the profession as a whole? And I'm hoping we have that opportunity.
Well, you've certainly convinced me. Hopefully, you've convinced our audience as well. Why don't you tell us how do we get involved? Where do we go? What to do?
Yeah, so our website is theaccountingmoveproject.com. And on there, you can learn so much more about us, and you can read our reporting from the last 15 years and learn how the program works. We are open for registration right now, so we encourage firms to go register, let participate in the survey this year, and if you want, upgrade to a scorecard. We are encouraging as many firms as possible to participate because, frankly, the more firms that participate, the more information we have and the better best practices we can share. So, yeah, and I am out and about and all over the place. So, reach out to me. You can email me at Bonnie at accountingmoveproject.com if you have any questions or want any more information.
Perfect. Thanks so much for being with me today, Bonnie. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Amy. I've enjoyed the conversation.
The Center for Accounting Transformation provides business professionals with a framework for utilizing innovations that are ready for adoption, the training and resources necessary to apply the innovations, and an opportunity to engage the talent and community needed to further the pursuit of innovative accounting practices that drive responsible and mindful business performance. Find out how the center resources can help you and your team members at www.improvetheworld.net. Thanks again, and I hope you join us for another Know How Corner.